China has passed a wide-ranging new security law for Hong Kong which makes it easier to punish protesters and reduces the city's autonomy. Critics have called it the end of Hong Kong. In this video we will highlight, what is this law all about? What are the new law's key provisions? Why are people in Hong Kong afraid? Why did China do this? So let's begin. What is this law all about? The law came into effect at 2300 hours local time on 30 June, an hour before the 23rd anniversary of the city's handover to China from British rule. It gives Beijing powers to shape life in Hong Kong it has never had before. Critics say it effectively curtails protest and freedom of speech. China has said it will return stability. Hong Kong was always meant to have a security law, but could never pass one because it was so unpopular. So this is about China stepping in to ensure the city has a legal framework to deal with what it sees as serious challenges to its authority. What are the new law's key provisions? The new law's key provisions include that crimes of secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces are punishable by a maximum sentence of life in prison. Damaging public transport facilities can be considered terrorism. Those found guilty will not be allowed to stand for public office. Companies can be fined if convicted under the law. Beijing will establish a new security office in Hong Kong with its own law enforcement personnel, neither of which would come under the local authorities' jurisdiction. This office can send some cases to be tried in mainland China, but Beijing has said it will only have that power over a tiny number of cases. In addition, Hong Kong will have to establish its own National Security Commission to enforce the laws, with a Beijing-appointed advisor. Hong Kong's chief executive will have the power to appoint judges to hear national security cases, raising fears about judicial autonomy. Importantly, Beijing will have power over how the law should be interpreted, not any Hong Kong judicial or policy body. If the law conflicts with any Hong Kong law, the Beijing law takes priority. Some trials will be heard behind closed doors. People suspected of breaking the law can be wiretapped and put under surveillance. Management of foreign non-governmental organizations and news agencies will be strengthened. The law will also apply to non-permanent residents and people from outside Hong Kong who are not permanent residents of Hong Kong. Why are people in Hong Kong afraid? Beijing has said Hong Kong should respect and protect rights and liberties while safeguarding national security, but many still fear the loss of Hong Kong's freedoms with this law. There are reports of people deleting Facebook posts and concerns that candidates opposing the national security law will be disqualified from running in elections. Many are also afraid Hong Kong's judicial independence will be eroded and its judicial system will look increasingly similar to mainland China's. The city is the only common law jurisdiction in China. Some pro-democracy activists such as Joshua Wong have been lobbying foreign governments to help their cause. Such campaigning could become a crime in the future. He has now quit his Demosisto party. People also worry that a threat to Hong Kong's liberties could affect its attractiveness as a leading global business hub and economic powerhouse. Why did China do this? Hong Kong was handed back to China from British control in 1997, but under a unique agreement, a mini-constitution called the Basic Law and a so-called one country, two systems principle. They are supposed to protect certain freedoms for Hong Kong. Freedom of assembly and speech, an independent judiciary and some democratic rights freedoms that no other part of mainland China has. Under the same agreement, Hong Kong had to enact its own national security law. This was set out in Article 23 of the Basic Law, but it never happened because of its unpopularity. Then, last year, protests over an extradition law turned violent and evolved into a broader anti-China and pro-democracy movement. China doesn't want to see that happen again. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.